The Pentagon is hiding a secret more chilling than Area 51, and it is buried under 3,000 feet of Alaskan permafrost. Deep within the jagged, ice-choked peaks of the Alaska Range, Mount Hayes stands as a silent sentinel, guarding a mystery that has baffled intelligence agencies and military pilots for over half a century. While the world stares at the desert sands of Nevada, a far more unsettling anomaly pulses beneath the northern lights. This is not a conspiracy theory born in a basement. It is a documented geographic blind spot where planes vanish, compasses spin into madness, and some of the world's most elite remote viewers claim an extraterrestrial presence has taken root. Something is currently active inside that mountain, and it operates with a clinical indifference to human life. Mount Hayes is the highest peak in the eastern Alaska Range, a brutal landscape where the wind can strip the skin from your face in seconds. But it is what lies inside the mountain that has earned it a reputation as one of the most guarded secrets in the Western Hemisphere. For decades, this region has been part of what locals call the Alaska Triangle, a vast expanse of wilderness where more than 20,000 people have disappeared without a trace since the late 1980s. That is a rate twice the national average. While many blame the unforgiving terrain, those who have flown over the shadow of Mount Hayes tell a different story. They speak of electronic dead zones and strange glowing orbs that move with a speed that defies every known law of physics. It is a place where technology fails, and the ancient world seems to reassert itself with a vengeance. The story of the Mount Hayes base gained significant weight during the height of the Cold War. In the 1970s, the Central Intelligence Agency and the Defense Intelligence Agency launched a highly classified program known as Project Stargate. This project utilized individuals with perceived extrasensory perception, known as remote viewers, to gather intelligence on Soviet targets. One of the most gifted viewers in the program's history was a man named Pat Price. Price was a former police officer whose accuracy was so unsettling that it reportedly kept high-ranking officials awake at night. In 1973, while conducting a session on global anomalies, Price's mind reportedly drifted toward Alaska, pulled by a frequency he couldn't ignore. Price described a massive, subterranean facility located directly beneath Mount Hayes. He didn't describe a bunker made by human hands or a temporary military outpost. He spoke of a highly advanced, automated base that appeared to be millions of years old. According to his reports, the occupants of this base were not human. He described them as beings that looked like us, but possessed a clinical, detached nature, using the facility to monitor human activity and regulate some form of planetary energy. Price claimed that this base was responsible for the frequent malfunctions in US and Soviet satellites passing overhead. He described the walls of the facility as having a metallic, crystalline sheen, powered by a source of energy that felt like a low-frequency hum vibrating through the very soul of the observer. He wasn't looking at a contemporary secret. He was looking at something that had been there since the dawn of time. For years, the Price reports remained buried in classified files, but the physical evidence on the ground continued to mount. Pilots navigating the corridor near the mountain frequently reported their navigation systems going haywire. In some instances, entire flight instrument panels would go dark, only to flicker back to life once the aircraft had moved several miles away from the peak. These weren't just civilian pilots prone to exaggeration. Highly trained military aviators from nearby bases reported seeing luminous spheres that would pace their jets before disappearing into the side of the mountain at speeds exceeding Mach 5. These objects didn't leave vapor trails, and they made no sound. They simply moved through the air, as if the atmosphere offered no resistance, slipping into the solid rock as if it were water. The mystery of Mount Hayes isn't just about what is seen, but what is felt by those who dare to approach it. The area surrounding the mountain is a massive magnetic anomaly. Geologists note that the rock composition in the Alaska Range is complex, but it doesn't fully explain why the magnetic field around Hayes fluctuates so violently. Some researchers suggest that the mountain sits atop a natural vortex, a point where the Earth's electromagnetic field is dangerously thin. If an advanced intelligence wanted to hide a base on Earth, a location that naturally disrupts electronic tracking and is almost impossible to reach by foot would be the perfect choice. The mountain itself provides the perfect natural cloaking device. In the late 1980s, rumors began to circulate about a series of strange seismic readings coming from the heart of the mountain. These weren't the jagged signatures of an earthquake or the rhythmic pulses of volcanic activity. They were sustained, low-frequency vibrations that lasted for hours, sounding more like heavy machinery than shifting tectonic plates. Some former military personnel stationed in the region whispered about the gray box, a term used for a specific area of the mountain that was permanently off-limits, even to high-ranking officers. Security around the perimeter of the mountain, while officially non-existent, is said to be enforced by silent sensors and rapid response teams that appear out of the wilderness within minutes of any unauthorized approach, regardless of the weather conditions. Is it possible that official agencies are aware of a presence inside Mount Hayes but find themselves in a state of observation rather than control? This is the core of the dilemma. Unlike Area 51, which is a known military testing site, Mount Hayes is a no man's land. There are no fences, no signs, and no official acknowledgement of a facility. Yet, the sheer volume of unidentified aerial phenomena concentrated around this single peak is staggering. In 1986, a Japanese Boeing 747 cargo flight encountered 3 massive, unidentified objects over Alaska. The pilot, Captain Kenju Tereuchi, reported that the objects were the size of aircraft carriers and emitted a blinding light. The encounter lasted for over 30 minutes, and the objects eventually streaked toward the direction of the Alaska Range, specifically toward the coordinates of Mount Hayes, disappearing into the dark. The psychological toll on those who live near the mountain is also a factor that cannot be ignored. The local indigenous communities have long held the mountain in a state of fearful respect. Their oral histories speak of the mountain people, or the sky travelers, who reside within the rock and should not be disturbed. They tell stories of hunters who wandered too close to the high ridges and returned with missing time, or didn't return at all. While modern skeptics dismiss these as folk tales, the parallels between ancient legends and modern military reports are becoming harder to ignore. These stories describe a presence that is indifferent to human life, treating the mountain as a fortress that exists outside our understanding of borders and laws.
If we apply
the scientific community offers a more grounded,
the resulting
though equally unsettling perspective. Some theorists believe that the base isn't a physical structure in the way we understand it, but a manifestation of piezoelectricity.
The plates move slowly.
The immense pressure of the shifting tectonic plates in Alaska could be generating massive amounts of electromagnetic energy, creating Earth lights or plasma spheres that interfere with electronics and trick the human eye. However, this theory fails to explain the structured nature of the objects reported by military pilots, or the detailed, consistent descriptions provided by remote viewers like Pat Price, who had never visited Alaska in his life. The reports describe something with intent, something that reacts to being followed, something that watches back. Consider the strategic importance of this location. Mount Hayes sits at a crossroads between the Arctic and the Pacific. From a surveillance standpoint, it is the ultimate high ground. If an intelligence were indeed monitoring human technological and defensive capabilities, Alaska would be the prime observation post. The state is home to some of the most advanced radar systems in the world and a significant portion of the missile defense shield. The presence of an uninvited guest in the neighborhood would be a security nightmare. A presence that cannot be engaged, cannot be hidden forever, and cannot be explained to the public without causing widespread alarm.
We can't stop them. We can't stop them.
It suggests a vulnerability that no government is willing to admit. The silence from official channels is perhaps the most convincing evidence that something is amiss. When asked about Mount Hayes, the standard response typically points to the harsh weather or magnetic interference as the cause for missing aircraft. But they don't explain why searching for those aircraft often yields nothing.
Looks clear.
No debris, no signals, no black boxes. It's as if the mountain simply opens up and swallows them whole. There is a specific kind of cold that exists in the shadow of Mount Hayes. A cold that feels artificial, as if the mountain itself is drawing heat and energy from its surroundings to power something deep within its core. It is a vacuum of heat and information. As satellite technology improves, one would think the mystery of Mount Hayes would be solved. Yet, curiously, many high-resolution satellite images of the peak are often blurred or glitched in public databases. While this could be attributed to the extreme weather and cloud cover common in the Alaska range,
Look here.
the frequency of these digital artifacts over this specific peak has led to accusations of intentional censorship. If there is a vent or an entrance to a subterranean facility, it is being kept well out of the public eye. The coordinates provided by Pat Price lead to a sheer rock face that appears impassable. Yet pilots insist they have seen lights fly directly into the stone at speeds that would vaporize any known aircraft. The story of Mount Hayes forces us to confront the limits of our sovereignty. We like to believe that we are the masters of our planet, that every square inch of Earth has been mapped and conquered. But the Alaska Triangle, and Mount Hayes in particular, reminds us that there are still white spots on the map, places where our laws, our physics, and our technology don't apply. Whether it is a secret military project far more advanced than anything we've been told, or a relic of an ancient presence, the mountain remains an enigma. It exists in a state of permanent shadows, a place where the barrier between our world and something else is dangerously thin. Those who have spent time in the wilderness of the Alaska Range speak of a feeling of being watched. It isn't the feeling of a predator stalking prey, but something more clinical, more observational. It is a sensation often described by those who have encountered the gray box areas, a feeling of being a biological specimen under a microscope. This sensation is most acute in the valleys surrounding Mount Hayes. It is a place where the air feels heavy with static, and the silence is so profound it rings in your ears. It is the silence of a secret that has been kept for eons, a vibration that resonates at a frequency humans were never meant to hear, much less understand. In the end, we are left with a series of haunting questions that demand an answer. Why did the most accurate remote viewer in the history of the Stargate program insist that a base existed there? Why do military pilots continue to report objects that defy gravity in its vicinity? And why, in an age of total surveillance, does Mount Hayes remain a blind spot? The mountain doesn't offer answers. It only offers more shadows. As the permafrost melts and the world changes, perhaps the secrets of the Alaskan interior will finally come to light. But for now, Mount Hayes stands as a cold, jagged reminder that some mysteries are buried too deep to be uncovered, and some neighbors are better left undisturbed. The mystery of Mount Hayes isn't just a story about potential visitors or secret facilities. It's a story about the unknown frontier that still exists in the heart of the modern world. It's about the thin line between reality and the impossible. While we look to the stars for signs of life, We might be ignoring a presence that has been right here under the ice, watching us since the beginning of time. Until the day the mountain decides to reveal what it hides, it will remain the dark heart of the North, a place where the instruments scream, the people vanish, and the lights in the sky never stop their silent patrol. Every year, a few more adventurers and researchers head into the Alaska Range, drawn by the legend of the Haze Base. Most return with nothing but stories of the wind and the cold. But some return changed. They speak of strange hums at night, of lights that move through the trees without illuminating them, and of a profound sense that they were trespassing in a place where humans weren't meant to be. They look at the mountain not as a pile of rock and ice, but as a living thing, a giant machine or a silent observer, waiting for a moment that hasn't yet arrived. They describe the mountain as having a pulse, a rhythmic thrumming that can only be felt when the wind dies down and the world goes still. The physical reality of the Alaska Range is one of the most hostile environments on Earth. To build anything beneath its surface would require technology that matches or exceeds our current capabilities. If the reports from 1973 are accurate, then someone or something achieved this feat long before modern engineering was capable of such a task. The sheer scale of the energy required to power a subterranean facility of that size, and to do so while remaining undetected by traditional thermal imaging, is staggering. It suggests a mastery of energy that bypasses the need for combustion or external grids, drawing power from the Earth itself in a way we are only beginning to theorize. We may never know for certain what Pat Price saw in his mind's eye. We may never know what Captain Terauchi truly saw from the cockpit of his cargo plane. But the mountain remains. It doesn't care about our theories or our fears. It sits in the Alaskan wilderness, a monument to the unexplained, pulsing with a hidden energy, guarding a truth that is as cold and enduring as the ice that covers it. In the high altitudes of the Alaska Range, the truth isn't just out there. It is down there, deep beneath the surface of Mount Hayes, waiting in the dark for someone to finally listen to the hum. The frequency of disappearances in the Alaska Triangle continues to rise, and the search efforts continue to come up empty. The families of the missing are left with nothing but the vast, indifferent landscape of the North. Some researchers have pointed to Mount Hayes as the anchor point for these disappearances, suggesting that the electronic interference emitted by the mountain could be leading pilots and hikers off course, pulling them into the dead zones where GPS and radio signals are swallowed by the rock. It is a terrifying thought that a geographic feature could act as a predator, luring the unwary into a void from which there is no return. The modern era of satellite surveillance and global connectivity has given us a false sense of security. We believe that there is nowhere left to hide. But the jagged peaks of Alaska and the deep permafrost of Mount Hayes prove otherwise. There are still depths we cannot reach and energies we cannot measure. As long as the lights continue to dance over the Alaska Range and the compasses continue to fail in the shadow of the peak, the legend of the subterranean base will persist. It is a story that challenges our understanding of history and our place in the universe, suggesting we are not the only tenants of this planet. In the final analysis, Mount Hayes is a mirror. It reflects our deepest fears of being watched and our persistent hope that we are not alone. It stands as a boundary between the known world and the great mystery of the interior. Whether it is a facility of ancient origin, a secret outpost of modern intelligence, or a natural phenomenon we have yet to categorize, it demands our attention. The mountain watches, the hum continues, and the ice keeps its secrets. For those who dare to look too closely, the mountain offers no warmth, only the chilling realization that we are sharing our world with something we do not yet understand. As the sun sets over the Alaska Range, casting long, blue shadows across the snow, the mountain takes on a life of its own. The wind howls through the crags, sounding almost like a mechanical drone to those who know what to listen for. The lights begin their patrol, moving with a grace and speed that makes a mockery of human flight. And deep below, under 3,000 feet of ice and stone, the hum goes on. It is the heartbeat of the North, the sound of a secret that has survived for millions of years and will likely survive long after the world has forgotten the name Mount Hayes. The truth is buried in the permafrost, and it is waiting.